By request, this is a Mionix Castor review. So quick introduction, my name is Zai, I've been playing Quake for about 17 years, so I'm fairly practiced with first-person shooters, and I tend to know what makes a mouse good. I will preface this video with there's no such thing as a perfect mouse, and just because a mouse is good or if I say it's good, doesn't mean it's going to be good for you, everyone is different. Inside, the cable is bundled up as always, standard gold-plated USB, quick start information guide and warranty, and a bunch of stickers. Let's do a quick button check. Left button. Right button. So I'm not sure if you can hear it on cam, but when you release the button on the Mionix Castor, it has a slight click to it. I'm not really a fan of mice that do that, but it's not a problem. Here's the Zowie EC2A just for contrast. That actually feels like a better button to me, but I'm sure many people will prefer the Mionix Castor for it. So I can't imagine these buttons being too good for MOBA games, but they'll be perfectly fine for first-person shooters. Now the side buttons. I haven't had any trouble with these, unlike the EC2A which have too much travel time. These seem to go in just enough, and they're quite comfortable. Placement seems good too. Very easy to use with the thumb just resting there. You have the DPI switch on top. It's as you'd expect, scroll wheel. Most scroll wheels that I've tried have had a bit of a rattle. The best one has been the RocketJumpNinja Pure, that might have the best build quality. So I'm not impressed with the scroll wheel, but it's not too bad. As far as tactile feedback goes, for all the CS players out there, it's got enough. It's not to the degree of the G302 or 03, but there is some there, so you should be able to get away with it. But scrolling and web browsing, maybe it's just my copy, but that's too loud for me. Still, if you like the rest of the mouse, that's not a deal breaker. As for mouse 3, clicking it in. As usual, it's not an easy click, but it's not too hard either. You'll see that the scroll wheel doesn't actually have much height on it, when compared with the Zowie EC2A, which has got too much. Now a quick rattle test. I like to shake it around just to see if it's got any sensor rattle or just loose buttons or anything like that. There does seem to be a rattle there, so I'm going to hold the scroll wheel to see what it is. No, I can still hear it. Okay, so it still sounds like something is loose in there. I don't know what, but when I'm moving the mouse around, I can't hear it. So it's nowhere near as bad as the G303, which does actually have a rattling sensor. But still, that is a build quality issue. And like the G303, it might just be my copy. We'll see how prominent that issue is. Lastly, we'll just do a tap test. That's a very standard sound, there's no extra rattle on that, so it is just when you're shaking it, it does have something loose. Moving on to the materials, this is a rubber plasticky finish. The buttons feel a bit more plastic than the sides, but overall that's a really nice smooth texture, I quite like it. And it's grippy enough to not be slippery. I hear a lot of people complaining about sweat. I don't really have sweaty hands, I guess, so I can't really test that despite being in an Australian summer right now. But so far, I think it'll be good, and it does allow for good grip. On the left side, you have a rubber textured grip, so hopefully that is enough to keep your fingers in place. I think this is a premium quality mouse, and that's most likely adding to the price. All up, I got this for about $115 Australian, so really not cheap. And on Amazon, it's actually more expensive than the EC2A and the Rival 300. I'll just quickly note that this mouse seems to be a dust magnet. This grip especially, I've had to clean it several times already, and even straight out of the box, it actually had dust all over it. The mouse buttons also have very comfortable grooves in them, so please take note, Rocket. This is what I really like, and I think a lot of other people would find it more comfortable too. The cable is a braid, but it does seem to scratch on the pads. So not the smoothest I've used, probably the G303 is really smooth, but I do prefer these sorts of cables these days on the Zowie EC2A. It's just smooth and flexible. I've never had a problem with these cables before. So the braid is a nice touch, but I have found that these are the cables that rub on pads. And according to the website, I haven't measured it, but it's 2 meters long. On the base you have 2 big mouse feet. They're not the smoothest that I've used, but they are very smooth. You can have a quick listen on the SteelSeries QCK mousepad, compare it to the Zowie EC2A. So it's just a bit louder. Here's a close-up look at the shape. You can sort of see that they've got these grooves along here, obviously for your little finger and ring finger. I'm not a big fan of this because I call it a not safe shape. A safe shape is when it's just a flat edge, so you get to choose where you put your fingers. When they're dictating the shape like this, a lot of people can find it uncomfortable. So in palm grip it feels right, but as soon as you go to claw grip, these grooves start to be a bit of an uncomfortable point. It's a very smooth curve on the top, and that means that it should be suitable for most grips. Maybe not so much palm grip for the bigger hands, but here's how it looks. There's where my fingers go. So with an 18.5cm hand, base to tip, I found it quite comfortable, and 9cm measuring from the thumb over to the knuckle there on the little finger, feeling good. For bigger hands I'd worry, but I think it'll suit fingertip grip quite easily for those bigger hand people. Claw grip should be fine too, as I said, just worried about palm grip for the larger hands. But smaller hands shouldn't have any problem palming this mouse. And by smaller I mean between 15 and maybe 19cm. The larger hands get above 20. One thing that I didn't actually quite like on this mouse, if you look at it from here, it looks fine, right? But if I just show you the bottom here, you'll actually see how deep this groove is and how far out these buttons actually come out. So when you're holding this, you actually feel like there's this massive ledge coming out over the top. And that, I think, is actually unbalancing the mouse a bit. I would have preferred if they didn't have this side like this and actually tapered it down more, maybe cut off that section. Our fingers would still be fairly comfortable there, and then extended this out a bit, because what I think they were trying to do was keep the base slim, giving us a good grip width. Now, for those new to the channel, the grip width is basically the distance between your fingers when you're actually holding the mouse. And this one's a bit misleading. It's about 5.5, which is the golden measurement for people with hand sizes like mine, but it's actually a bit more, and they've tapered it in just so they can keep it slim. I find the grip width important because the Death Adder was too wide for me to aim. Mice like the EC2A have 5.5cm grip width, and I seem to be able to aim them extremely well. And again, the length is misleading too, because I don't like to actually measure the top. I measure the base, that's what's keeping you stable on the pad. And it seems like it's just a little bit over 11cm. So the measurements add up, they seem perfect for me. But the EC2A, which is a very similar size, actually feels like a small to medium mouse. The Castor feels like a medium to large mouse, which means I'm a little bit torn on this. I can aim it fairly well, better than the Death Adder, but I can't aim it as well as the EC2A. And the two reasons are the size and the way they've shaped the base, but also the imbalance of this overhanging ledge that has the side buttons on it. The Castor with a little bit of cable is 97 grams. The EC2A is 94 grams. So while the weights are very similar, it actually feels like the EC2A is a lot lighter. Maybe it's a combination of the feet they've used and the balance and design of the mouse, but something about the Castor definitely feels heavier. For the software, you can't actually install it, or not the version I've found anyway. And every time you load it up, it actually changes the Windows pointer sensitivity. You have a choice of setting 3 different DPI steps, and they range from 50 all the way to 10,000, going up in increments of 50. You can set the liftoff distance down here. Low is actually under 1 DVD, but high is under 3 DVDs. In millimeters, that's about 3.6 at high, and low under 1.4 millimeters. Moving on to the color settings, you can have on or off, then solid, blinking, pulsating, breathing. This is an RGB mouse, so you do have a wide selection of colors, and you can even set it to color shifting mode. And a quick look at the color shifting mode, you see that the RGB cycling is quite smooth. The problem is that you can't actually change the speed of that, and you don't seem to be able to set the gradients you want either. You have macro recording in here, and back in the button configuration, these are the options that you have. The default commands are there, but there's really not too much in here. Single key assign and assign macro. Now for the sensor testing, I'm just going to do some rocket jumps. This is in Quake Live, and this just allows me to feel if there's anything actually wrong with the sensor, because rocket jumping isn't just about the speed flicks, it's about the accuracy, and it also even can tell me if the liftoff distance is good or not for me. But anyway, I've done a lot of testing with this already, and it is a very good mouse, so I don't need to actually do all these rocket jumps, especially when I mess them up because there's a camera in my face. Yeah, it's an excuse, but a valid one. Now we're going to do the sniper test, and that's when we just zoom right into FOV1 and move the mouse as slowly as we can, just to check if the sensor can track the movement. So here we go. That's moving the mouse very, very slowly. You probably can't even see my hand moving, but it's going pixel by pixel. and it's looking pretty good. Now if we just speed that up. Now what I'm seeing with this is that there is a slight wobble to it. Now that might be because the Castor seems to handle sensitivity differently to the EC2A, which I'm testing it against. It's highly unlikely that this is a sensor problem, as they both use PMW 3310 sensors. It might be the Castor implementation, or it could be the mouse feet. This is a very small issue and it has never affected me in the game, and I've played a fair few hours with this mouse. Now this is a Zowie EC2A. It's also set to 3200 DPI and sensitivity 0.47 with raw input. Let's do the really slow test. Tracks every pixel as expected, and then speed up, and it just seems a little bit smoother than the Castor. So results inconclusive, just something to be aware of. You might have to test it yourself, but I highly doubt it's going to be an issue. Once they get to this level, it's more just out of curiosity and interest. It's not an actual problem. And as usual, 400 DPI seems a lot jerkier than 3200 DPI. From testing, I have found that higher DPI is better, but only up to a certain level. I think 4000 and above is overkill, but 3200 does feel a lot better than the lower ones. However, after 2000, it's really hard to tell the difference. The counter argument, and the reason that people say 400 and 800 DPI are better, well, they have some other reasons, but they also say that 3200 DPI adds some latency. I have not found that to be the case, so I would disagree. In this test, I'm just going to try to see if there's any deceleration or acceleration. So we move the mouse slowly around, all the way over, and we were there, and now we have to go back. Now I hit the mouse pad, and that's what went over. So because it's not a completely scientific test where it's going to yield exact results, that's probably right. Now I have no accurate way of measuring how much of a delay there is on the sensor, and for me, the Castor feels good. I'm going to try it against the Death Adder Chroma, which is the snappiest feeling one I've ever used. And you know what? It's still the snappiest. Maybe it's because it actually feels like a lighter mouse for some reason. But whenever I pick up the Death Adder, it just feels so responsive compared to the other mice. I don't know why it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Castor sensor is really good. I didn't have a problem with it in game at all. But in terms of snappiness, there's just something about the Death Adder Chroma that is amazing. It might just be the feel of the mouse feet on the pad. Anyway, what you need to know about the Castor right now is that it feels good in game, and I didn't have any issue with delay. In terms of aiming, I was playing quite well, but not as well as I could play with the Zowie EC2A. This is going to be a personal preference thing, but I put it down to maybe the weight and the balance of the Castor. It just feels slightly off to me, and with the shape with that overhanging left edge, it doesn't feel completely comfortable. That's not to say that your aim's going to be not quite right either. It really depends how you aim, what your style is, what games you play, and so on. I'm just giving you my experience, so you can take that into account when you're making a decision. And if I was going to play a competition match, I'd definitely be using the EC2A. So in conclusion, this is a really well-made mouse. It's quality, it's solid materials, it feels really good, it's a comfortable mouse. It just has some minor issues in my view that might bother some people but be perfect for others. So I hope that helps. For more mouse reviews, please hit the subscribe button, and also there'll be gaming related videos coming soon. I'll also do some more tips and tricks videos on how to get better and how to improve your game. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. And if you'd like to purchase this mouse, I'll leave an Amazon link for you in the description. It's a work in progress, but check out my website, RocketJumpNinja.com. Just be aware, I haven't put all the new mice on there yet. I was focusing on the Castor review. Anyway, hit that like button for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.